Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
Yay. And we are here. I love when it's an opportunity to learn about a new musician, to meet somebody new. We are here with Unendings, otherwise known as Nick Murmurs. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
it's good to meet you guys.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your music. Tell us about it.
Thank you. It's stuff I've been working on for a long time, but I've always been kind of secretive about it. And for a number of reasons, I decided to finally that it was silly to kind of be kind of working on music constantly and in private. Not even any of my close friends even knew, like just kind of whittling away at this at the late hours of the night, and decided, well, with the encouragement of my mom and my wife and close friends, that I should kind of branch out and share more of myself with the world. So I tend to write, I guess, pop music, but with a experimental kind of bent to it. I'm really, I think, maybe first and foremost a songwriter, but also kind of a sound designer. I really like kind of exploring new textures and new worlds and kind of building, like, I guess, like worlds out of sound, and but building that into like a pop mentality. So trying to, I guess one of my goals artistically would be to kind of write music that's catchy and easy to kind of listen to on repeat, but also that kind of pushes the boundaries sonically. And I think my goal probably for my audience is ultimately just to make people feel things and to move their ass a little bit too, which hasn't really been a focus in most of the music I've put out so far, because it's mostly been me kind of solo. But I'm gearing up to release some actual like studio type music that's more like official. And those arrangements are much bigger and more kind of filled out. And I think there's some stuff in there that might make you shake your butt a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. But
We'll see.
But I want to move people in more than one way, I guess, is kind of what I'm hoping to do. Yeah.
We talk a little bit about textures. I wanted to make sure to ask about a different kind of blue.
Okay. Yeah.
And it seems like you had an unusual backdrop to it, or.
Yeah, so that's a song I wrote a while ago, and I actually have like another arrangement of it that's mostly done, but it's very different. It's like almost like When the Levee Breaks, like Led Zeppelin style drums and like guitars, and like it's a much bigger thing. But I've been messing around with this sampler I got. Also messing around with like old cassette tapes that I got. And she used to be a nurse, and she's got all these like old medical, like educational tapes. And one of them was called, it's like a really beautiful cassette. It's around here somewhere. It's like the graphic design of it's really gorgeous. And it's called like Understanding Heart Sounds and Murmurs, which I almost feel like would be a great like album title. And I'm like, I'm going to take the tape and record it into my computer and mess with it. So I basically spent a bunch of time like chopping up all these heartbeat sounds and like the sounds of like the inside of the chest when you're breathing and various types of arrhythmias and things. And just like putting it into this like drum machine sampler type thing and just kind of messing around. I got this like beat going, and I was kind of like, I just started kind of playing this old song of mine to that beat. And it's, like I said, it's all constructed of these old, like kind of lo-fi, noisy, like heart sounds and weird. And I've kind of mangled them a lot, so they don't necessarily all sound like heartbeats, but but yeah, it just kind of came together kind of on a whim. And I thought it sounded kind of cool, so I thought I'd give it a shot.
It sounds really cool. I'm a big fan of experimental and noise and some ambient, but and I saw that description, I was like,
yeah, and I think that's kind of like, that's a very stripped down cover, or like a kind of like a cover of my own song, I guess, in a way. It's a pretty stripped down arrangement. It's just me, like my voice, the piano and those heart sounds. But it is kind of, I guess, kind of encapsulate what I was saying, like trying to write a song that's ultimately, I hope, like fairly melodic and kind of pop, kind of structures and whatnot to some degree, but also incorporating like, weird sounds in a way, or something that's more evocative. Not weird just to be weird per se, but weird to kind of evoke emotion and a sense of place or something, you know. So yeah, and it was also just for me kind of an exercise in like trying new things with new gear, I guess, so to speak. Like for me, I'm really interested in like the ways different instruments or different like technologies kind of create different creative workflows, and like how that can kind of draw new ideas out of you. Like if I sit down at the piano, I tend to write like similar kinds of piano-y songs. And if I sit down at the guitar, it's kind of, I don't really know how to play guitar, and it's terrible, but I kind of like figure out, you know, like that kind of brings me in a different direction. But I was like, well, maybe I'll take the sampler and just kind of see what happens. And, you know, so just like finding these different ways of kind of like getting the juices flowing and seeing where that takes me is kind of one way I kind of kickstart creativity. You know, when you get into like a little rut, or when you're just kind of like, God, I wrote this song before, you know, it's the same old piano thing. Let me just try something completely out of left field and see where that takes me. Yeah, so.
I was going to say, you alluded to all the different instruments you play. Can you tell us a little bit of how you got into music first, or how that all started for you?
I guess the earliest thing was like as a kid, I was in the Metropolitan Boys Choir. So, and I've always kind of been like, well, at least through college, like in choirs, which is very much like a collaborative experience. You're not really like the focal point. You're part of like a broader instrument, and you kind of fit into that broader framework. And there's something about it that always felt very like sacred to me, because the connection you have with kind of the people you're up there with can be really deep and profound. And it was also, I mean, it kind of goes with a little bit of my persona of kind of, I struggle to kind of be out front. And so like being in the choir made a lot of sense for me. And it was a way to kind of do music, but in a way that, you know, it was a little bit lower stakes. I've never been really great at like practicing instruments and getting really good at them. And when you're in a choir, you can kind of like, if you mess up a little, you know, like you can kind of like, it all smooths out a little bit. And that was comforting for me as a kid. So I did choirs like for a long time. And I guess I'd almost kind of say my main instrument is my voice, because it's probably the thing that's been with me the longest. And the only thing I ever really like took lessons in. I took, I guess, piano lessons for a tiny little bit of time, like in middle school, but I never could like sit down and practice. I was always at the piano, but I was always like noodling with my own ideas, and I never practiced. And we kind of didn't have money, so we kind of canceled the lessons. But I always sang, and in college I got a scholarship to study voice, which is more like opera kind of voice. But I had to kind of weirdly unlearn a lot of that kind of singing to kind of start to sing more like a pop or rock or whatever singer. Just been kind of an interesting journey too. But like I always kind of like noodled around on the piano, mostly kind of self-taught. Guitar kind of picked up much later, like in college or even kind of after college. Yeah, and then like recently I've been getting into like strange esoteric like electronic instruments too, and just like DIY type stuff. So I kind of dabble in a lot of things, and like I said, I've kind of been making music like kind of in secret, like weirdly, because I'm, for a lot of reasons we can get into, but so I've kind of like dabbled in a lot of stuff, and I've had to kind of be my own band in a little way, like as I'm recording. But frankly, like never really focused on an instrument enough to get good at it, except for maybe voice to some degree. But so I'm like I'm kind of like a dabbler in a lot of things. And I think my musical taste is kind of similar. I like to pull from a lot of places. I think like what I've released so far, because it's mostly been me live, like playing piano and other things, like it's just maybe one slice of kind of what I get into sonically or whatever. But I'm gearing up to kind of release some, like I said, kind of like official tunes that have been more kind of, kind of arranged in the studio, so to speak. And that'll hopefully be a broader glimpse into some of the other stuff I like to do. And then I also, like you mentioned, ambient music. I also kind of, I also do a lot of that as well. It's kind of like a side thing. And I have like a couple albums worth of ambient tunes I want to release. soonish, I think too. So yeah, I've been kind of making music, like a lot of music for a long time. And now I'm kind of like turning the corner and starting to actually share it. So yeah, it's been
That's
a
exciting.
fun and scary journey for me.
What made you start to share? Open the door to that.
Yeah. It's been a bunch of things, but like primarily, so it has to kind of do with my relationship with my mom. And so growing up, I was only child. My mom was a single mom. She was disabled, had a lot of mental health issues and other physical health issues. And I kind of, for most of my life, took care of her. And she was very important to me. She passed away about 4 years ago. She always like urged me to sing more and to share more of like my voice. She could kind of tell, like, she knew I was always at the piano, I was like always as a kid engaged in music in one way or another. And I remember like being in the car with her, we'd be like singing along to like Billy Joel or like, I don't know, Phil Collins or something back in the day. And, I'd be singing along and she would like slowly like turn the volume down because she wanted to hear me sing, and I would always like pull back and stop singing, and she'd get like pissed off at me, like, come on, I want to hear you sing, And I just always like for a number of reasons like never felt that I had like I don't know, like that it was my place to sing for other people or to like be at the spotlight or to share that part of me for a number of reasons, but like I always kind of kept it hidden, and I always felt like in my life like to shrink away and not be the spotlight. And when she passed away, well, even before she passed away, like I actually ended up leaving my job and taking care of her full time for a while. And as she was getting like even more sick. And when she passed away, like before she passed away, she was in hospice here at home. And I started to I was like, I need to share music with her. I like did a little concert for her and like all this stuff. And it was really, I'm really glad I had that opportunity. And when she passed away, like it kind of threw me into a spiral for a while because, she was kind of like, big part of my world. Like I said, kind of like my only, like the parent I grew up with. And she was like kind of like my best friend, and also had kind of become my vocation in a way to kind of take care of her. And like I said, I left my career and everything. And when she passed away, I kind of like didn't know what to do with myself. Like I'd lost kind of like a friend and a mother and like a vocation in a way. And, but it always stuck with me, this idea that she wanted me to share more of myself. And she was deeply, like she struggled a lot with mental health issues, to the extent she was like an amazingly generous and loving person and very bubbly and like super sassy and like just awesome. But her depression was like so extreme that she just basically lost touch with basically everyone in her life except for me and then my wife when we got together. But it just always felt like super sad to me that she was this amazing person and had all these gifts to give. And like about halfway into her life, she got divorced and like her whole like world kind of fell apart. And she just kind of like hermited up at home, And I think about the people I love, and I want them to share themselves fully, right? Like I want the people, like it's often like so easy to erect barriers between even the people we're closest with, let alone kind of like the broader world. And I just look back at her and like, a few people did get to see her light and like the way she gave back and like how loving and amazing she was. But a lot of people never got to see that, especially later in her life. And it just kind of made me think like, I think everyone, it's like a fundamental belief of mine. It's been hard to put into practice, but fundamental belief that like everyone we need to be ourselves and we need to share that with others. And for me, the transition has been, because like I said, for me, like the idea of like being on stage or being like a focal point has always been a struggle for me. Because to me, I've always thought of it like, well, who are these people who like want to be, in front of everyone and think they're so great and like want to be the focal point. I always felt like there was a sense of entitlement that came with that like I kind of balked at for a long time. But I started to think of it differently more like giving a gift, I guess, to others, right? Like this idea that when you share yourself, you kind of, you give of yourself freely, and it doesn't have to be about you, it can be about the audience. And so that kind of, thinking about all this is kind of what kind of made me take the plunge to say like, and my wife just being super supportive, like hearing me constantly playing music and being like, when are you going to put this out there? Stop just like doing this in the corner over here, you know, like, it's stupid that you're just like, you know, not stupid, she never called me stupid, but you know what I mean? Like, why are you kind of like withholding all this? Like people want to hear it. Or people will want to hear it. And I never really believed that, you know, I'm kind of like one of those people that like, when you hear somebody talking about you, you're like, whoa, you know I exist? Like, I don't know. I just never, I've always felt like kind of, you know, shy and weirdly kind of like I didn't want spotlight. And so really kind of reframing it in the last couple of years and thinking about it more like, this is a way to be my true self. It's always been kind of like a big part of me, but it's always been weird to like live the majority of my adult life, like hiding this really integral part of who I am from like even my closest friends. It's a really way to live life when you're like hiding like your true self or your true identity in a way. And so it's just like, I need to just be myself and like share all these things inside me. And I've got like, I'm getting, you know, like I've got friends that are, you know, like we're all getting older and they're like, you know, I'm getting to that age where I don't care what people think of me. I have a good friend who's like, I turned 35 and I thought, you know what? I'm just not going to give a shit what anyone thinks of me anymore. I'm just going to do me and the world can just whatever, you know? And like, she's been like really successful like since then, you know, like just kind of being herself and sharing that with the world. And, you know, like it's been an inspiration to me too. So just trying to kind of like be who I think maybe am meant to be, wherever that leads me, I don't know. But said, like for me, when I think of the people I love and I care about, like I want them fully who they are and to not be afraid, to know that like when you are like who you really are authentically, that's like when your light shines, and when that's what we really want to see. I think other people, it's, you know, hopefully it's inspiring to people to see that, or hopefully it's just like creates a connection with people, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Yeah, so it's.
I was going to say, yeah, it's easy to gravitate when you feel that from people too and see it in them. And 35, if you keep adding, it gets better and better because then you really don't give a shit.
Right. Yes, I'm embracing that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a useful thing. Yeah, it's one of the gifts of, I think, getting older.
Now,
Yes.
as you do share your music with people, how have you been able to, I mean, COVID is a weird time to be sharing stuff. It's a whole new world for everybody, but how have people embraced it? I mean, your music is beautiful. So I love the texture to it. I love that it's kind of goes into a vein that I like a wide berth of music, but just the ambient. How have the people around you?
The reception from like friends and family has been really positive. I haven't really been like hitting the pavement, so to speak, and trying to like network with, you know, I don't know, influencers and stuff. I'm still really kind of new. I've been kind of a hermit for so long. I like don't really do social media. Now I'm trying. So like, I just don't, you know, I'm starting to figure all that out and get my bearing. But primarily I've just been sharing with, you know, my friends and family. And it's been really cool. Like, I mean, I've reconnected with a lot of people I've kind of lost touch with. I've had even like close friends, like just kind of, I had a friend who like like I don't think knew I ever did music, and we were good college buddies, and he's like, oh, we just put on your album, like your live album, like when we were doing dishes or whatever, and like within 30 seconds we were both crying, like we're like, what the hell, you know? It's like I was like, oh, I guess that's what I want, is to make people cry weirdly. Like that like really made me feel good to know that, not because he's like sad, but because it moved them, you know what I mean? But it's funny to think about it that way, like that it's touching people in my life is what really matters. And yeah, so that's been really cool. Like I even reconnected with like old friends of my mom's. Like my mom fell out of touch with a lot of people I reconnected with one of them on like Facebook, and you know, it's just like, it's cool. I think like I said, after my mom passed away, I kind of made this pledge, like that I was going to be more open and share and like do all these things. But then like 4 years went by and I kind of like found myself that I'd really just kind of done the opposite, like kind of fallen into depression and kind of like started to kind of pull inward, which can kind of be useful from like like an artistic point of view, because you're like, steeping in all that, grief and whatever. Like it's fertile ground for creation, but it's kind of terrible for your soul in other ways, like in terms of staying connected with the people that matter. And so, it's been awesome to kind of finally kind of crack myself open and start to reveal that part of myself with others. The other part of it, though, it has been also disconcerting in a weird way, because having spent like so much of my life like privately doing all this stuff and kind of keeping it secret, which is a strange thing to do, but it's kind of who I am or have been. You have all these like thoughts about what's it going to be like when I finally, if and when I finally share this stuff, and I have like an album that I worked on, like that I've been working on for a really long time. And, it's kind of imagining I'm going to release this album and it's going to come out of nowhere and nobody even knows I do music, and they're going to like hear this thing and be like, whoa. And it's like, everyone's going to stop and just be like, whoa, but then like in reality, you release music and like you hear like a little bit kind of crickets, right? Not completely. Like I said, my close friends like really supportive, but people are busy and people are living their lives and like there's a lot going on, and like so I think like it's weird having gone from like being a total hermit to all of a sudden I'm going to share all this stuff, and like not really knowing what to expect, and to kind of being like a little bit like the expectation maybe I built up in my head was not quite realistic. Like you have to work at this, and like you have to like kind of like keep putting stuff out and keep like networking and like interacting with people to like get attention, I guess. And so part of it's like that aspect of it, also just like it's weird going from someone who's been like super guarded in a lot of ways emotionally to like someone who's completely out there all of a sudden, like almost overnight. It's been kind of a strange journey for me, and I'm starting to like figure that out, like how to handle that emotionally or whatever else, because like my music is generally very heartfelt and kind of comes from like a pretty deep place. And so like you put this out, you put your like heart out into the world, and then like I don't know, it's just kind of surreal, because like you're I don't know how to express it, but you've
had such an unusual life. I mean, just everything that you've told us, it's not that the music it adds a depth to music. I was going to say it makes the music make even more sense, but it adds a depth to it. But I think that you're really kind of embarking on a whole new, unusual, and exciting path, because now is your time to be out there. Now is your time to be out there, and and you, as you say, it's amazing to think of that you have played so much of this yourself, the music that you've produced, because it probably would be nice to be out there and to play music with some people and to connect with people, to use the music that you've kept as your secret, to use that to connect with people is,
yes.
I mean, that's a 180, but it's exciting.
It is exciting. It's like, I feel like I'm in a new world now, like a new paradigm a little bit with that. Like, and now it's Corona, the era of Corona or something. Yeah. So it's not like the best time, but I'm also, because I'm kind of like, in a way, like connecting with people on social media is like weirdly comfortable in a way, because it's not like, I don't have to like worry about meeting up with cool musicians and like jamming with them and like proving to them that I can do stuff like that. Because I don't know if I can really, but you know what I mean? Like, I've always felt like I was never like cool enough to like be a musician, but I think like Corona came and my hair got longer and like I stopped showering a lot, and like all of a sudden I just looked cooler. I'm like, oh, now I have to release music. Now I have to release music, because I used to have like kind of like basic hair, now I'm like, oh, like, so it's like part of that too. But it's been kind of weirdly it's been ironic because, like I mentioned, like I started like.
I'm sorry, it's
No,
just
it's
so
fine.
good.
It's
Okay,
true
I'll
though. Like I
pull
have
it
these
together.
thoughts, like for years and years, because like I've lived other lives. Like I'm kind of older than I probably look, but like I've done like the 9 to 5 for a long time and went to grad school and like like kind of played the put on the business costume every day and I always felt like an imposter, a little bit, and like wasn't really who I was, but thought kind of like, well, this is, I think because I grew up like really kind of like poor, like I made a decision early on in life, like I have to do practical things. Like music's fun and it should be I remember when I went to college, I was like, maybe I'll major in music, but I was like, no, that's a hobby. Keep that over here. Do math. So I became a math major, and like, and I kind of question that now. And like, I would probably tell people now, like if you're that age, like chase that passion, like especially when you're like 18 or something, you're so young, like just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? Like don't compartmentalize who you are. Nourish it and see where it takes you, and that's something I didn't really think to do, I think for a number of like personal reasons, but I'm here now, I guess, and seeing what I can do with it. But it's the whole like process of me releasing music has been strange too, because I think, like I mentioned, since like about 10 years ago, I started to kind of really like intentionally sit down and record an album and like write all these songs and produce all these arrangements. And I kind of like been kind of working on that for like 10 years off and on. I had a lot of like breaks where I took like a year or two off or something. And I'm just trying to like perfect every little thing and blah, blah, blah. And then like this April, I'm like sitting at home and it was, like quarantine, and at my mom's birthday, her 70th birthday was coming up. And I've been kind of like gearing up for releasing music and like performing and stuff. And I was just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to like go up in the attic and like record like a live concert. And then that later became like an album that my hair is getting crazy, put out on Bandcamp. But it was like totally like the opposite of what I like for 10 years. I was like perfecting this thing and like, sculpting it and like, being really guarded about it. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to like put out 10 other songs. Like just like kind of on a whim. Like one day I was like, my mom's birthday's coming up. Let me just do this, and like 3 weeks later I'd like put it out. And it's weird how that works. Like how you can spend so much of your life, like kind of thinking one path was the right way to do things. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, I've been my own enemy here. Like I've been basically like procrastinating for 10 years, like if I'm honest with myself, and because I've been afraid to like step out and it all just like kind of clicked like in that 1 month. And now it's much easier obviously to just like start putting things out that like actually there's a weird comfort in putting out things that aren't really finished, that are kind of rough around the edges, because the stakes are lower, I think. Like, and that's actually, I think, as I start to delve into social media, like it's important. I think I grew up like in the era where like albums were the thing, and you put one out every year or two, and that was like, and I love albums, and that's kind of how I think of music. But I think we live in an era now where it's like, no, you got to be like releasing something new every week or every month or every day, even, and you can't release.
Or you're able to, yeah.
Right, and you can't do that like trying to polish everything all the time.
I was gonna say you're able.
Yeah, it's just, if you're trying to do things that frequently, they're just not going to be polished, and you have to become okay with that. And then people expect it. Like, it's maybe more authentic to just put things out that are a little bit rough around the edges. It's certainly been like a growth process for me to kind of relinquish some of that perfectionism that I have, and to just be like that different kind of blue I put out. Like I really, there's a lot of things about it I'm like, but I just have to say, screw it. Like, I'm just going to put this out, and it's just one step in the journey, So, yeah.
So you can't be your own worst enemy. You can't be the one getting in your own way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've been that for a long time.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you've kind of walked through that door, which is, again, I just think that's fantastic and exciting. And on the one hand, the quarantine it's not the best time to be out there meeting people, you know, but on the other hand, it gave you what you need. It gave you the time. It gave you everything you needed to put. I mean, I think of your album coming out in April or the live album. That's one of the silver. I'm always looking for silver linings of COVID. It's a great silver lining that you were able to go and do it.
Yeah, it certainly gave me a little bit. I work from home and I'm kind of self-employed, so I'm generally I'm very fortunate to have some of that flexibility. But having a lot of my projects go on pause mode, basically, helped to gave me the time to finally kick myself in the rear a little bit on things I've been trying to do for a long time. Yeah, it's been one benefit of it for me. Yeah.
Well, good for you for taking. I mean, a lot of us have a list of things that we could have been, you know. I could.
But don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm a poster boy for productivity.
No. None of us should be. None of us should be.
No, of course.
But to get something to spend the time with something that's really worthwhile for you, you know, and and especially I think, I mean, you said your mother 4 years ago. 4 years is not. I mean, it takes a long time to get over something like that, especially because she was so integral to your life.
Yeah.
Not only just as a friend, but the day-to-day of your life. You know? Yeah,
she really had been like that. Yeah, like I said, my vocation in a way, especially toward the end. But and you never really get over that. You never really. It's slowly the pain kind of loses the focal point, and the focal point shifts slowly, I'm realizing, but it's getting there, more toward gratitude, more toward just the beauty of remembering all the things she did and who she was. I think an important aspect of my music and one of the themes, I guess, of my music lyrically would be this idea that the kind of miracle that I put this tagline in a lot of my stuff that's just and it's a lyric from a song that'll be coming out eventually, but it's love from the dark defiantly. And it's this idea, first of all, I guess metaphysically, I think about it's amazing that the universe is this, and this is going to sound like I'm a stoner or something, but that the universe is this just cold void, but out of that, somehow we come into existence and we brought love into the world. And it's amazing that just kind of evolved or came to be, depending on how you look at it. I don't know, some people have different thoughts on how that all came to be. But on a more personal note, I think about my mom, she suffered from very dark depression, but never ceased to be an incredibly loving person. And I kind of don't understand it, how she could have continued to be so such just a wonderful, loving person despite how much pain she had in her life. And that's always been a miracle and kind of a mystery to me. And so I don't know where I was going with this, but yeah, just this idea that that there's something sacred in that. And you only get that if you share yourself and if you connect with others. And to me, that's what's if I believe in God, it's this idea that God is the connection we have between us and the things we do for each other, and the way we express that out in the world. And so just trying to be part of that, I guess, and to honor her memory a little bit too. Yeah.
Well, and that's a gift that she's given you too. I mean,
for sure.
To allow you to be the kind of mom that you want to honor.
Yeah.
As you're speaking, I think of, and I this must have been a description that you have on one of the websites or something, with the music explores the contradictions.
Yeah, because part of that's just I'm for me creatively, I could write music very readily, but lyrics come very slow to me. And I kind of realized that one tool for writing lyrics might be to explore contradiction, right? Light and dark, or anyway. So it kind of started out as kind of this is a hook into ideas for lyrics, but then really kind of has become, and obviously that's probably a common tool in like all literature, this idea of like, contradiction and tension and opposites and things. But so it's not like it's some creative idea I came up with, but it certainly helped me kind of get the juices flowing creatively to think about that when I write. And but certainly, I don't know, I kind of feel like a lot of the most true things in life are contradictory or kind of have a like inherent contradiction in them. And I just keep bumping into that in life, and yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of taught to like, in Western culture, maybe at least, like that, there's kind of a scientific way to think about everything, and everything can be boiled down to objectivity, and like contradictions are eliminated. But I don't know, it doesn't really square with like how I have experienced life. Some of the most true things tend to be things that are two things at once, and often two things that are kind of at odds. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm trying to think of examples now, and I'm having trouble, but.
No, but I know what you mean. I mean, yeah. I think you're right. As you experience things, it's, you never know what you have until it's gone. I mean,
Yeah.
Just to take it, yeah, it's hard to think of an example, but I know what you're saying. I mean, where you think you don't.
Well, like, here's an example that's, again, about kind of my mom and everything. But like, big part of my identity over the years has been like one as being a caregiver for people, like particularly for her, but for other people too. And being a caregiver, I think, introduces a lot of contradictions, because like on one hand, it's easy to tell yourself, well, I'm a caregiver, so like I'm a really good person, and I'm like helping this person and doing all these things. But on the other hand, like there are a lot of like ways in which for me, like being a caregiver was I don't know, like something to hide behind. Like I wasn't always like the best caregiver with my mom, first of all. Like we fought a lot, and like our relationship was very complicated, and like we loved each other very deeply, but we could go at it like really hardcore, and a lot of times, like for me, like being a caregiver almost felt like something like a cloak I wore to kind of be able to say like, well, I am a good person, even though I was sometimes selfish. Like I think being a caregiver is just difficult in general, finding the boundary between how you care for other people, how you care for yourself, and if you're being like, so there's selfish motivations maybe in it too, in terms of like starting, feeling like you're virtuous because you've decided to like sacrifice a career or something for this. That's not really cutting it, though. You have to still be, a good son and a good person. But I think like there's, contradictions in that. Like, like a lot of people will tell me like, you're such a great son and you did all these things for your mom. And I'm like, well, if you could really see all the shit that happened, like some of it was, like, so, like, and I'm probably beating up on myself a little bit.
I'm going to say I have 3 children.
Yeah.
Let's just say I don't want to, and now they're older now, but there are times I was very thankful of no nanny cams in my house. I mean,
right.
Because it is, and especially, the line, of course, is you always hurt the ones you love, kind of thing, but you fight with the people who are most like you, and that's where,
sure.
But that is a part of the love, I think, too, especially if you're dealing with somebody who's got issues, especially, it's more clear cut when you're talking about a kid, but I'm grounding you because I love you. I mean, there are things that exactly. I'm fighting with you because what you think matters, what I think, this is part of the love. It's just that contradiction, that's part of the love. So you wouldn't want people around you that you never fought with. I mean, some days you would, but
yeah.
but it's, I think that you are probably just, but to recognize that there are times where you feel like, there are times where you just put them in and say, I'm having a shower, damn it. I don't care what else I'm
right.
But that's self-care. I mean, in that balance of the self-care.
Exactly.
And especially when it's family, and when it's not family too, it is knowing when to, it sounds to me like you had an amazing relationship. So yeah, you got to remember that's a part of it. I had a friend who is quite disabled. He had a lot of difficulties with a lot of different things. Also, he was a jerk. And jerk is not my first word that I want to think about. I mean, he was, and I said, one of the things I love about him is you could honestly hate him. Like, and he was a friend, you know, and I'm like, I can overlook, yeah, I know you can't reach that, but if you weren't a jerk to me, maybe, and that was part of what he loved too. It was like, yeah, first and foremost, I am a jerk. That's my first, remember that's who I am first. You know, it's just, allowing people to be themselves, as you were saying earlier, you know, to be yourself, and so yes, I think you're.
Well, I think about like the way
I was gonna say I hear. Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead, Heather.
Oh no, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, like,
no,
it's similar.
I was just gonna say
No, go ahead. Go,
Nick.
You go.
Go.
No.
No.
I'm just gonna repeat myself and blah blah blah.
Nope. I'm being a better person.
Okay. Well, I'm just kind of like echoing what you just said, Anne. But like, I think about like the way you think, like, I think like the way romantic love is kind of treated, maybe in like how you're taught to think about it as a kid, is kind of like you find this perfect person and like you just love everything about them, and that, like, you know, that's like the fairy tale. But I think like real love is when you find somebody that, like you said, Anne, like you love a lot about them, but there are certain things you just like, but you're gonna like, fuck it, you're gonna like stick with them and care about them in spite of those things. Not like, you're not gonna pretend like they don't exist or look for somebody that's better. You're just, I mean, not that, like, you know what I mean? Like, better is kind of a weird way to put it anyway, but like you're gonna like embrace, I guess, like the full authentic person. And to me, that's like what love really is. And I think like, but that's not often the way I think we think about it, at least like naively, maybe as kids or something growing up. Is this, so, you know, yeah, it's like, yeah. Anyway, kind of repeating what you said, but yeah.
No, nobody wants a Stepford wife for that long.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we have a vision of it, and it turns out,
Yeah. I think it's like super romantic to like that, like the person you've like chosen to spend your life with or whatever, the person you really love, like that you don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything, but God damn it, you're gonna like see it through in spite of that because you just care about them so much. Like, yeah, so.
And I feel like the growth for yourselves too, for both of you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I feel like you've got to have that relationship with your music now. You've got to take it, you know, step out of yourself and promote it. And
yeah,
you said I mean, your stuff is fantastic, but if it makes sense for you to find other musicians to play with, that would be good too. You know.
Yeah. Certainly something I want to do. Like I mentioned you earlier, like I did the live album primarily because I've been like so shy about this. I haven't really I don't know a lot of musicians. I didn't grow up with like a ton of cool people that were like in bands and stuff that I could like get to know and hang out with. And even if I did, I was kind of shy and, you know, like never felt like I said cool or whatever. But now I'm kind of at that point where, I do want and need that kind of like partnership with people that I can kind of connect with on that level. And that'll be kind of new for me in a weird way, unless I go back to like being in choirs and like that kind of camaraderie. But, you know, finding it in this case now, like I need people that can help me kind of bring this to life, which is kind of why I chose to use this moniker, you know, instead of like just my own name, because I'm kind of hoping to build kind of like a vessel that can include a lot of people eventually. So, and it's just going to be a lot more fun on stage, I think, when stages come back, to do it with other people. I mean, there's something so deep about that connection on stage, and then just practically not having to do everything myself will be a real relief, you know.
Right.
Yeah, then I can focus on just one or two things. That'd be nice. Yeah.
That'll be nice. I can't wait to the day.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, that's what I was planning to be doing now, is shows a little bit, which I've been terrified about. But like, and so this is kind of a weird respite for me. It's like a chance to release music and not have to like worry about, you know, playing a perfect show. I've always like thought musicians were kind of weirdly miraculous. Like, how can you play a show without just totally screwing everything up all the time? Because like I'm not a very disciplined practicer. I'm learning to be. But, you know, like, yeah, it's a miracle that that they do that. And I'm kind of like, I'm going to get there. I'm getting there. But the quarantine gives me a little chance to work on my chops a little bit. Yeah, and hopefully make
Well, I
some
was going to
connections.
say, it feels like it's a perfect storm for you to have the time to get comfortable, baby
Yeah.
steps to release and be able to feel
Yeah, I mean, it's
comfortable with
obviously been a
performing.
terrible ordeal, but I guess trying to
Yeah.
find that silver lining. Yeah, but yeah.
Well, for folks who are looking for you, tell us how people can find you.
Sure. Well, I have music up on Bandcamp right now. I kind of briefly alluded to, I put out this like live album, and you can find that at unendings.bandcamp.com. If you can also find like the live albums live on YouTube, like so you can watch me actually perform it in its entirety,
Nice.
and that's on YouTube. I think I don't even remember what you'll find Unendings channel is out there somewhere. Yeah. And I think also Instagram is another place I'm trying to more kind of like regularly post weird little jams and other songs and things. And that's my handle there is unendings.music. Yeah,
Nice.
on Instagram. So
Nice. Well, with your permission, I'll grab something off the YouTube and put this on the post, so people have super fast access to your music.
Yeah. That's great. I appreciate it.
Good.
Yeah. I love what you guys are doing. Thanks for connecting, and I'm gonna go back and watch a lot of your interviews, and
thanks.
I've seen a couple of them. Yeah.
Thanks. That's great. That's great. Yeah, I'm gonna try to think of ways to kind of get you connected to some folks, because I think that'll be really. I'm so excited for you, because I think that it's.
Thank you.
I think you've done such great work, and I think the easy part will be. Well, the hard part is opening up the world, and then the easy part will be good to go and share your talents with folks. Yeah, I mean, as you think about it as a gift, as you've said, I think that it's a fantastic gift to have. So it's good. I'm
kind of shy, but I'm also like really social. Like I tend to be the last guy at the party, like hanging out and whatever. But I just need to start building relationships, and I think it's going to be real fun. And like I'm also like kind of I'm a caregiver, and I'm kind of like a cultivator of and an organizer a little bit, and like so I'm like interested in like supporting other people and like building those relationships and being authentic about it. And so like I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you. And to the extent that you help me make any connections, it'd be really cool.
Yeah, we'll keep it in mind. So good. Well, thank you. You may have seen my younger half just snuck through the back there.
All right, yeah. I'll go check.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm so glad
that
to learn more about your music and more about you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been great to meet you guys. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to keeping in touch.